All right, well, will our next panelist come up, please? Rebecca Fior from Bank of America. One of our sponsors, for sure. Jean Moran, Capital Integration. Pete Bloom from FAVOB and Remedy. Pete, oh, there he is. And Kim Lott from Career Source, Palm Beach County. Thank you. And we're going to be talking about networking and building relationships. We'll just be sharing. Yeah, we only have 3 microphones to share. You don't mind sharing, right? Okay. And I always giggle in between everything, so I'm sorry about that. All right, so networking comes naturally to some. It took a while for me to get out there, and as bubbly as I am now, it didn't happen overnight. But I realized that networking has been very helpful, and just really introducing myself to people and knowing that when it comes to networking, it's not just meeting someone and then that's it. You have to follow up and build relationship, nurture those relationships because they will lead to some amazing things. So the question I have for all of you, what's your advice for leveraging LinkedIn? So LinkedIn on its own, as well as using it to stay connected with people you've met at in-person networking events. LinkedIn?
Well, I love LinkedIn. I'm Rebecca Fior, so please connect with me and all of my wonderful panelists here as well, because the power of LinkedIn is so wide. You can reach out to people to say, hey, I'm interested in this. I need some assistance on, shadowing, connecting. But if somebody doesn't have something that you maybe need in the moment, ask, who in your network can I benefit from? Because if I don't know somebody, surely I might find somebody that I can connect you with. So that power of connection and really leaning into those with a military background. I think it's a family, it's a community. We all understand the sacrifices that we've had to make and then some of those struggles. And so I have found for me personally, utilizing that, whether it's military spouse, veterans, I get more response than non-military.
Go ahead.
I think it's a great question. I use LinkedIn primarily as a research tool and a resource for learning more about companies and about people in the companies. And I pay for some of the extra features like Sales Navigator. It allows you to do a lot of probing and understanding before you ever have contact with somebody. I don't use LinkedIn for cold contact. I would strongly advise against that. But it's a great way to understand more about people you're interacting with. A word of advice that people who are interacting with you are shopping you as well. For those who are in business, it's a fact that 30% of the business decision is made before you ever have face-to-face contact. And it's made possible by tools like LinkedIn, where people can understand a lot about you. So you want to make sure that your profile really is a reflection of you and your company and whatever it is that you're about. I would offer one caution about LinkedIn, and it really applies to all social media, and that is if LinkedIn is your primary repository of contact data, I would guard against that. And don't let any particular platform, I don't care if it's a CRM tool or a social media platform, don't let them be the master of your information. You can download anything that you're doing on those platforms and keep it for yourself. And having that degree of portability of your entire network over time can really help you. So a couple of thoughts.
Thank you. I'll piggyback on what you're saying. LinkedIn, it just provides so many little features for you to be able to be successful on there, right? So you can Google anyone you want, you can search anyone in there. They have a little bell on there, so if you find someone that you really have been looking for, you've been looking for a contact at Meta, and you find someone, you can click that little bell, and then whenever they make a post, you can get that information. I'll tell you, I got out in 2004, I was on the struggle bus. There was no LinkedIn. So all networking had to be done in person, right? So you all have that tool. If there's any transitioning service members here, use it well before you get out. Make connections with people, remain visible, and don't only do it when you're job seeking. Keep those connections warm. It is who you know, but it's also who knows you. So when you create a presence there, people will reach out to you when they have an opportunity.
Well, LinkedIn is the #1 business networking tool in the world. That's the first thing. So that's the reason to be on it. I've actually been teaching LinkedIn for the last 7 years, once a month on MacDill Air Force Base, so that those transitioning and getting out of the military can help find a new career or start a business. And it's the best way to introduce them to other people. So the most important thing I think about LinkedIn, though, is it's a long-term thing. It's not a short game. So if you're getting out of the military, or you know someone who's getting out of the military, or if you have a business, you keep using it. And those getting out, I always told them, and this is definitely good advice for you to pass on, is that once you get out and transition, you may think you're done, right, that first time. But all of us that have businesses or work in businesses, we know that that's not the case. It's not stable like the military is, where we can just coast along for 20-something years and then retire. It's volatile, you know, the things go up and down, and you never know when that job's going to end. So constantly continue to keep networking and grow those networks, because you never know where that next opportunity is going to come from. I actually found 5 job opportunities that I have gone through that have all come from LinkedIn. So it's an awesome thing.
And before we move on, I would like to announce that there is another panel going on in Florida 2 to 3, and that panel is Roger That Marketing. Just a FYI, okay? All right, so we had jumped over one very important point, and it has to do with ice breaking. An icebreaker, because when it comes to networking, you have to break that ice. So what are some advice that you have, or some tips that you'd like to give when it comes to an icebreaker? Okay, go ahead.
I just keep it old school. I just, hey, how you doing? Actually, I'm a very extroverted person, but I like to give tips for people that are introverted, because networking can be a very scary thing if you're introverted. So, but if you initiate the conversation, I know it's counterintuitive, you actually have more control over where the conversation is going to go. So I just greet people, hey, how you doing? What are they going to respond with? How are you doing? Exactly, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm doing great. Better than this time last week. I went to some other event and it poured on me. I didn't have an umbrella, and whatever, right? But I can take that conversation to where I want it to go. And then it goes from there. But I keep it old school when I'm ice breaking.
I'm in a business where I help companies who are selling into the federal environment, primarily in Washington, D.C. And it is 100% a business of influence, of helping companies connect and align to be in the right place at the right time with the right kind of message. And that is really what networking is understanding not only what your message is, but what is the environment that you're speaking into? Who is the person on the other side of the conversation? The more credible you can be with your ability to talk about a number of things that matter to that person or to that company that are not about you, can help advance a conversation many steps further than you might think. And a simple tip is to look at the Wall Street Journal every morning and just scan it. You don't have to read every article, you don't have to be a world expert, but you need to know what's going on in the world, and you need to have an objective source of what is the information or the news of the day. Because you have to be able to talk about a variety of topics to present yourself credibly to that person on the other side. They will go back and learn more about you. They'll go look at you on LinkedIn if it was a first meeting. But if you can have a conversation about something that's not so specific about you getting whatever business you're trying to get in that first conversation, you'll find that the relationship advances in a different way, a much more professional way.
Anything to add?
I do. So I think sometimes we get nervous about icebreakers, or we're just shy, or we're neurodiverse. We may have autism, or we may have Asperger's, or any of those types of things. And so for that, what I suggest is let's gamify it. Say to myself, before I leave this room, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes. I'm going to get 3 contacts, and I'm going to get their name and their number, and then I'm going to follow up on my time, how I'm comfortable. And I think some of those things, when we think about that, obviously the 4 of us are probably a little bit more extroverted or experienced in pretending we're extroverted in the moment, right? But no, I think there's just so many different ways that you could take away from, but recognizing how each person's brain works so differently is also an important piece of that.
And so what are some of the mistakes that people make when it comes to networking that you've seen or recognized?
I think talking too much about yourself. If I may.
I go one more on icebreakers. I think it's important. Do a little research. Before you come to an event like this, you can usually see who the speakers are. If you're on social media, you can see who says they're going to attend. If you want to have an icebreaker, really, that's knowing something about somebody. So, do they like motorcycles? Are they in the same branch of the service? Did you go, are you from the same town? Did you go to the same school? All kinds of stuff. It only takes one thing to get a conversation easily started. So that's good for icebreakers. And for mistakes, I think patience, not having patience. A lot of people who go to networking events, they just jump right out. They want to hammer their message. They want to get their information or get what they need. But if you have a little patience and you listen to other people, there's always wonderful opportunities that may present themselves.
Thank you. And to piggyback on what you said, we connected before this event, and that's what I recommend everyone to do. Like you said, if you know someone's going to be somewhere, search them, slide up in their DMs and send them a message and network with them a little bit. But I think one of the main mistakes is talking too much about ourselves and making the big ask as soon as you meet someone. Like, let that relationship grow and provide value to them. Listen to what their needs are, see how you can meet that need, and then just let it grow. You may not get anything immediately from that relationship, but don't make the big ask out the gate.
I'll offer 2 icebreaker questions. One is, what do you hope to get out of this show or event, or what brings you here? It may be obvious in a setting like this what brings you here, but you could frame that as, tell me about the business that brings you here. 2 no-nos, I would echo the don't try to close a deal. And I would say that applies to this show. I would not be trying to close business in a show like this. It's just about getting to know people. But in some settings where they are specifically networking settings, there's typically a bar or a couple of bars. And my advice would be, don't make that your first stop. Force yourself to have a conversation with somebody before you make that stop.
Okay. And you mentioned about follow-up. So what are some of the follow-up tips from
Right. So
that you have?
We've learned that you obviously want to build rapport, establish commonalities that make somebody more interested in sticking to what you said. People remember how you made them feel, and if they know that there's a connection that can be built, use that in your follow-up. Hey, Michael, I met you at this opportunity. I saw that you were in the Marine Corps and you were in counterintelligence. Great. I was too. Let's talk about that. Or, hey, you're a military spouse and you're struggling to find work. I too was in that same space. I can help you. I've got some resources and connections, and just expanding that web. So certainly points from the conversation.
Are you a military spouse?
I am.
Okay. So what challenges do military spouses face when networking and also seeking employment?
I've seen this ebb and flow over the last 10 to 15 years. And I'll say I first became a military spouse in 2009 after the turn of I think the greatest recession, at least in my lifetime, that I've worked for in the financial industry. And I can remember we PCS'd overseas to Germany. So those of you familiar with the SOFA agreements, there were limited opportunities for educated spouses that wanted to work and build a career. So I can remember at that time having to lean in. LinkedIn, I think at that point for me was still kind of a newer-ish concept. But I thought, I don't know anybody here. I don't know the language. How can I tackle this? How can I overcome it? So the first thing I did was, learn the language, overcome any barriers that were in front of me. But as we have seen in the news, things ebb and flow about military spouses and networking, raise your hand and say you are, because there is a lot of emphasis right now on military spouse underemployment and unemployment being linked to a national security crisis because we're an all-volunteer force at the moment. And who are the best and brightest married to? Typically the best and brightest. So if you want to maintain that military force, you need a dual-income household to mirror what America's population currently looks like. So the mistake, let me circle back to that because I'm kind of long-winded, I would say is raise your hand and say, yes, I'm a military spouse. I support my military family. I support this country. I want to be employed. I want to volunteer. I want to be a part of this organization, whatever your goal is. And my mistake was always shying away from that because I thought an employer would say, she's not going to be around here for too long. She's overeducated, overqualified for this particular role. When I thought, but no, I've got skill sets. So that's what I would say. And then also going back to staying connected, some of those military spouses and veteran communities, people want to help.
Now, I'm going to still talk to you since you're the military spouse here. How are ways that military spouses can make themselves more marketable?
So that is an excellent question. You'll see in today's economic world and the way the labor market is, certifications are so important. Whether it's a cybersecurity, a project management certification, PHR, SPHR, any of those are important because you're going to have to pivot every time you move. You will not be guaranteed that same opportunity that you had, say you found something great at Fort Bragg, but you're going to Fort Bliss, two very different locations. Okay, well, what's the labor market there? How can I be competitive? You have to market yourself, you have to brand yourself, but certifications, absolutely a must. They will pay in dividends even if you have the bachelor's degree, even if you have that master's degree, because it's that continuing education.
And you're with Bank of America,
I am
so
with Bank of America.
what resources does Bank of America offer to military spouses?
Great. So I have the fortune to be on the most wonderful team at the bank. It's called Life Event Services. My team in particular, we support all of our employees impacted at the bank who are impacted by domestic violence, threat to self-harm, critical events. So here locally, we responded to any employees impacted by the Pulse nightclub shooting, if you remember that. We help our employees who are impacted by hurricane and need support, help, I'm trapped in my house, you name it. But in addition to that, we recently added the military component. There's twofold. We realized that a lot of our employees are reservists or National Guardsmen or women, and they also too need assistance when they are looking to activate, to go on their annual training. How do they get the care and support they need so they can take the leave and come back to a like job with like pay? Because there are some federal regulations under USERRA that we've got to comply with. But how do we make it so that they are the most authentic self there? And then the second part is the most joyous part of my day is helping a military spouse keep his or her job at the bank. So as I mentioned, a dual income household is needed in this economy, and it will be for the rest of our lives as we know it. And so what we do is, let's say I get a spouse, she says, we're going from Virginia to Washington State. There's a different ways in which we can help them retain it, but I'll give you a couple examples. I'll reach out to those market leaders and say, hey, I've got this spouse that's coming from this particular financial center to your market. You might not have a job opening now, or perhaps you had somebody that submitted their resignation today and the job's not exactly posted. Let me connect you with this person. And that way right there is the most useful tool. Again, reaching across markets, reaching about who you know. The second thing we do that I'm so proud of the bank and their commitment to military spouses, we'll put you on a job search. So say you can't find something. We will put you on a 30-day paid search, 30-day unpaid search, and we'll continue to be unpaid for the next 30 days to help you find something, because your job at that point is to find a job. And we know that's stressful enough when we're PCSing. There's childcare backlogs, those kinds of things. So in addition to that, we also have an informal resource group called the Military Support and Assistance Group for spouses specifically. So we've got our formal ERG that supports military and veterans, but we have also a military spouse subcomponent co-led by Abigail Hollingsworth. She is in Washington, D.C. and deals with public policy. No better person to co-lead that. And Erin Randstad, who is also in technology. So two very unique type of roles, and they'll put forth webinars and education seminars, and we'll also make sure that the financial literacy component is there. So lots of really great opportunities. I could go on and on, but I get paid to do this, which shocks me every day because this is what I love to do.
Well, we learn a lot about what Bank of America offers to our military spouses. The
Yes.
Bank of America.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. And
Yes.
one last thing for the other three. What's one tip that you'd like to leave with everyone when it comes to networking? What's one thing that you feel is important for them to do when it comes to networking?
Be credible in your outreach to the other person.
Yeah. You want?
Sure.
You know, a lot of times we reach out to somebody and we don't hear back when we're networking because things happen at events and they move so fast. Just, it's back to being patient again, and you have to remember that what might be the most critical thing to you might to them be in a list of 100 things that they need to do. So just keep trying, keep reaching out. Networking takes a little time and it takes a little work.
Something you mentioned earlier about neurodiversity got me to thinking. With a lot of transitioning service members, research will tell me there's going to be a lot of disabilities that are coming in that group into the workforce. I myself, I have a vocal cord paralysis, and I have spasming. So, and you can hear that now. If you really tune in, you can kind of hear I have a different quality to my voice. These can be little barriers to networking, speaking to people. Everyone has their thing. But if you don't leave here with anything, just know you need to network. You need it, whether you're doing it for yourself. I work at CareerSource Palm Beach County. It's one of 24 local workforce development boards across the entire state of Florida. We give employment services to veterans. And one of our folk that we have in our team is a local veteran employment representative. Their role is to go out into the community and broker, employment for you. They go out and present veterans for employment. So it's no substitute for what you can do on your own to network. But if you want that service, it's no cost. When you get out, you don't even have to get out. You can do it while you're transitioning. Reach out to your local workforce development board.
I just want to say that every job that I've ever been able to obtain through my military travels has been through the power of my network. I never once allowed myself to be a victim of unemployment. Underemployment, Fayetteville, North Carolina could pay some higher wages, but in all truth, that's been the most critical piece in being successful, being able to support my family.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. And what I got from all of you is just follow up. Network, but follow up. All right, please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Providing such wisdom to us. Thank you.